Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Business Live. My name is Daryl Kwao. Coming up tonight, COVID-19 pandemic exposes insurance brokers to grave losses due to the lack of a contingency plan. Also coming up tonight in the bulletin, AU reveals Africa's tourism sector has lost $55 billion in revenue due to the pandemic. Also, linking professionals to job opportunities, we'll tell you about an initiative which is bridging the unemployment gap during these times. Thanks for being with us one more time. Details right after this break. And welcome back to the bulletin, everyone. My name is Daryl Kwao. We begin with the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on the insurance sector. Insurance brokerage is gradually being relegated to the background due to the pandemic. Now, according to the Insurance Brokers Association of Ghana, the absence of a backup plan to avert the disruptions has exposed the industry to grave losses. Vice President of the association, Shaibu Ali, spoke at a webinar on the effect of COVID-19 on the insurance industry, which was organized by Integrity Magazine.
So far as the effect of COVID is concerned, my focus is to look at it from the point that, one, it has led to loss of business, and then two, it has led to an increased cost of working. The very first impact on the industry is that we woke up one fine day to realize that none of us brokers had a good contingency plan. None of us brokers had a disaster management plan. At least what some people had was just a plan of storing our data or server data offsite so that when there's a fire, at least we can have access to our data. But as to something to deal with anything the like of what we experienced, none of us had anything. The good thing is that this is a wake-up call for us to make sure that what we're able to put in place following the pandemic, and then what the NIC requested us to submit, which we did, we should build on it so that if we all survive this COVID, if at the end of June, if we are all still alive, at least we will take away something that we have, so that in any time that we have a problem with disaster management, we can be able to survive. So that is the first impact that I wanted to talk about. The second impact that I want to look at is that the protocols itself and the lockdown effect had a varying impact on our industry. So the president's directives, the WHO directives culminated in the lockdown. People had to go home, stay at home and work. This meant that people had to procure IT-related infrastructure, hardware and software, which some of us did not have. We had desktop computers in our offices, some had laptops. We had to procure these things so that staff can work from home. We had to buy Wi-Fi for people to work from home. Some companies, or most companies, had to produce or had to get protective gear for their staff. Nose masks, they had to get hand gloves, face shields, they had to get sanitizers and wash basins. People even had to make provision for transport so that if they had company cars, they would put the company cars at the disposal of their staff so that they would stay away from the public transport so that they do not infect their staff. All this came at an extra cost. This cost was never budgeted for at the beginning of the year. And if you have looked at the NIC annual report and you see the type of incomes that brokers make in Ghana, you will get to know what I'm talking about, that this really hit our members hard.
Well, meanwhile, the National Insurance Commission has assured insurers of some relief packages, including extending the deadline for meeting the new minimum capital requirement amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Here's Michael ANDOH, who is Deputy Commissioner of the National Insurance Commission.
New capital requirement, yes, the capital requirements are under consideration. There are discussions going on. There are efforts going on to see what can be done about the capital requirement deadlines. And so I am sure that sooner than later, something will be announced or communicated to the industry about the capital requirement and the new capital requirement and the deadlines. Reliefs. Yes, Shaibu, I hear you clearly on the issue of the reliefs. Somehow the NIC also needs to fund its operations to be able to go on. The NIC has been doing a few things to also keep the industry going. There are some training programs that the NIC has been financing, and we have done something on selling and emergency conditions to help the industry in this difficult time to find appropriate and innovative ways of continuing to sell.
Okay, from insurance, let's move to transport. If you plan to patronize the services of transport operator Metro Mass Transit, you may realize workers were not operating. Drivers have embarked on a sit-down strike over unpaid salaries. Listen to a passenger who was stranded and one of the workers on strike who spoke to JoyNews.
I've always been thinking of picking the Metro Mass because of the safety, right? And it is a public knowledge that as a sprinter, because of the rush to get passengers and things, they get themselves involved in an accident and that kind of thing, which is a bad fact. But I came here surprised to hear this time around they are on strike. And this is something which I know, which will be forthcoming in the sense that they've always been complaining of their condition of service, right, which has been very bad of late. In fact, almost a year now, that's the complaint the workers have been giving. So that's it. That's it.
So are you disappointed?
Very, very. A thing I've always been escaping, a thing I've always been dodging, that sprinter thing I've always been dodging, because I have a very good friend who died out of this kind of sprinter business, right? So I've always been trying to avoid picking sprinter. So that's,
you find yourself in a sprinter?
A sprinter because of the conditions around. That's it. That's it. But I knew that this strike thing is forthcoming in the sense that they've been complaining a lot. This worker and that kind of thing, they've been sacked without any reasonable reason, right? I should have to say. So that's it.
Your full name, sir?
I'm Benjamin Yao Akuto.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, the reason why you are sitting strike is with your salary. You don't pay your salary.
For how long?
2.5 months.
For 2.5 months, you don't receive your salary?
Yeah.
You also see that there are so many grounded buses in your yard. What is wrong with them?
Right now, they are dealing with salary, not different issue with that salary. We are dealing with salary. You're not talking about salary.
So why is it that your salaries are not paid?
I don't know. That's why you are sitting down.
So for how long are you going to sit down?
Oh, until they pay. If you don't pay your salary, you don't pay, no working. Okay.
Well, earlier, correspondent Nana ASENSO MENSAH explained to me Metro Mass Transit's financial woes.
The Metro Mass Transit is going through some turmoil in terms of finance, in terms of the finances, so to speak. Speaking with the aggrieved workers, the number of over 200 workers, they say they have laid down their tools. They want to work until their 2-month salary arrears are settled. That is the common song they are all singing. They say they are tired and sick of not being paid at the end of the month, and the situation is getting worse. So they are saying that they are not going to resume their position until their debt are settled. But on a normal day, when you get to the KUMASI Metro Mass depot, you see many buses coming to and fro. It's a very busy place, but today when you get to the forecourt, you will see commuters stranded and frustrated. And some of them I spoke with told me they got to the depot around 5 a.m. to catch the first bus, but to their surprise, they realized that the drivers are on strike. And let me also add that it's not only drivers, it is the conductors, the mechanics, and then the drivers. They are all singing the same song. They are not resuming. So commuters are stranded, and now they are resorting to the minibuses, the trotros, and then the other transport operators to, transport their goods and then also travel to their nearby villages. Also, another situation I also chanced on where you see Metro Mass is one form of transportation that most of the people rely on in terms of carting goods. So I saw perishable goods like fruits and vegetables lying on the floor under the sun, and it will get spoiled, let's say, in some few hours. So owners of these perishable goods were also frustrated, and then they were saying that they're supposed to transport their goods to market centers in the nearby villages and other areas across the country. But with the situation, it seems that the goods might, at the mercy of the scorchy sun.
Okay, so you're watching Business Live. Let's still remain in the Ashanti region, something to do with cattle dealers who are complaining about charges from the KUMASI abattoir. My colleague, Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin, was there to observe the protests at the abattoir, and he sent us this report.
Management of the abattoir have issued a statement that a new fee for every animal is 5 cedis. Customers who also come to buy will pay 10 cedis. Previously, we paid 1 cedi for an animal. We are not even worried about that, but just go through the crowds and see how unhygienic they are. The cattle dealers burnt plastics in front of the managing director's office. It took reinforcement of police to calm the situation. Before we even agreed to pay the money, we were made to understand that if any animal gets missing, the owner will be compensated. Since we started, nobody has paid for our lost animals. Our cows are not in good shape, but they haven't fixed them as agreed. They walked journalists through the crowds where cattle wait for the end. They say the place is unhygienic and therefore doesn't deserve the current fee being charged. Look at how spread the muddy mixture is, and they want us to pay 5 cedis for each animal. Everything here is not in good shape.
They asked me to put some gates at some vantage points. I did that. Meanwhile, we were still collecting 1 cedi per animal for London and KUMASI abattoir. They asked us to make some trunk for them to get water to drink. We did that. All these things that we are doing entails costs.
But management say they have done what it takes to keep the place safe for the dealers. Joe Owusu-Brody is the managing director of the abattoir.
When it rains like this during rainy season, we need to scoop the place, the droppings, twice in the year. So we have to start scooping. And it all entails cost. We can't do this without getting them this thing. And then we said we also wanted to have something small so that we can try to make the place fine for them. The cost of our security and then the general staff, they can pay. Because what we get averagely for them is below 5,000.
But the dealers are disappointed. They are not getting value for money. Management have resolved to further engage the cattle dealers on the matter.
They clean one animal dies here. It's my people have to go and bury the animal. And how much are they costing me? It costs one animal. How much? About 70. One animal. dead animal carcass camp, go to landfill site. They collect 70 cedi before we bury the animal. You don't bury the animals. And a week I can bury about 5 to 10 animals. You see, which is not nice. And 1 cedi, by the day's work, I have used to bury the animals. So when we talk of all these things, they don't want to agree. That is why we are saying that they should come and just sit down and then judge and see how best we could all come together and see what we can do. So that's what we are waiting for.
I know what that means, right? An increase in charges means that you're going to be paying more for your meat. You're watching Business Live. Let's turn to tourism now. The AU has revealed that African countries have lost $55 billion in revenues from travel and tourism in 3 months. Tourism represents 10% of Africa's GDP, and the livelihoods of 24 million African families are linked to travel and tourism. The AU warns the impact on air industry will be severe. Take a look at those numbers there. Airlines have seen 95% drop in revenues, or about $8 billion. That's African airlines. So some statistics from the AU on the impact of COVID-19 on travel and tourism. Let's make sense of these numbers. Let's get some perspective from the people in the business. I'm joined by CEO of Untitled Travel Limited, RADIA, ADAMA SANI. She's joined me with some perspective on this. Great to have you on the program tonight. So AU is pointing out that travel and tourism has lost $55 billion in revenue in 3 months. I guess that is the story of every travel and tour operator, losses. Tell me more. If you can unmute, Radia, looks like you are muted. If you can unmute so we can...
Yeah, I'm on now.
Great, fantastic. So I guess that is the story of every travel and tour operator experiencing losses at this point.
You are absolutely right. All the way from the upstreams to the downstreams and to the middle streams, everyone has been affected in the tourism sector, more especially the travel agents and the airline operators. It's a global thing. We've heard in the news that Europe is opening its borders starting from 1st of July, but it's been, they're actually more like seeking out certain countries that they feel it's still more, it still possesses more danger in terms of health. And so they're actually choosing which countries they prefer to or they feel it will be safe for them to enter into their country. Unfortunately, Ghana and Nigeria have been exempted from that. We don't blame them. They're absolutely right. If our borders are open and we are still not permitted to enter Europe, even though it was small market, but it's just a signal to the Ghanaian government that finally when our border is also being open, we shouldn't just open it to every country at once. We should be able to have an internal process to be able to determine which country is safer to get into our country and which country we need to hold on for now, despite the fact that it still doesn't fetch us any form of revenue. And so we are in difficult times. These are general. As for the losses, the revenues and everything, we already know. We have accepted as travel agents that 2020 is just a bad year, and we are actually cancelling that total out of our business, the whole of 2020. So in case by the end of the year we get a bit of business to do, then we would be grateful for that. But rather than that, we are just grateful for, we are just, we've stuck our minds that 2020 is total out of our calendar in terms of tourism and aviation.
Okay, well, to your point about the EU travel ban, the fact that Ghana has been excluded, how do you say it would impact on travel and tour operators? If you can give us an idea, for instance, for you, whether you facilitate travel, tourism travels to Europe, how is that going to be of an impact to your business? Plus, what does it say about our efforts to fight the COVID-19 pandemic? Because the decision was really based on management, how countries are effectively managing. So it turns out if we are not doing better, EU wouldn't open up for us to travel over there.
In terms of the negative impact at the moment, there are no tour packages being organized at the moment, and all airports are still closed, all borders are still closed. And so we feel that the best way to earn some revenues at the moment is to encourage domestic tourism. Every country should be concerned about their citizens discovering other parts of their country rather than internationally. So domestic tourism is something that we've never really paid much attention to. And this just gives us that opportunity to improve upon our domestic tourism. How do we achieve this now? Now, most of our tourist sites are poor in terms of infrastructure. The roads to certain areas in terms of tourism is totally bad and all that. And so we need authorities to assist in getting these places to be more attracted to the Ghanaian populace so that we can encourage and then market Ghana to our fellow Ghanaians and then improve upon our domestic tourism for now. That is the only way by which government, we the tour operators and the citizens can all benefit in terms of tourism. So I guess
that is where the concentration of most travel and tour operators will be. But in developing our domestic tourism facilities or tourist facilities, that is like a very huge project which will take so much time. Talk to me about the interests, whether people are really interested in visiting our local sites.
People are interested, but there's one thing Ghanaians we've got to know now. Now, tourism goes beyond just having a look at waterfalls or mountains or anything like that. So just for the fact that you have traveled out of your country, out of your city to another region just to see how that region looks like and go with your family to get a comfortable hotel to stay in for about 3 days vacation or something, is enough in terms of tourism. But when you look at the hotel rates in Ghana, it's extremely expensive. Everywhere, hotel rates are very expensive here in Ghana, and citizens complain a lot. Now, there are a lot of people I would personally like to discover, let's say, perhaps Volta region. But I know I don't have any family member in Volta region. I do not have any friend in Volta region now who will host me in Volta region. If I do not patronize hotel service there, there's no way I would have the interest in the first place to even travel there. And if I look at the rates of hotels in the Volta region, or let's say any other parts of Ghana, that alone is very discouraging. And so it's high time GTA, that's Ghana Tourism Authority, try to regulate pricing. Dubai does this. Even Dubai, of all Dubai, have very low rates when it comes to their hotels, and more especially for their own citizens. They have very low rates for international tourists, and they have an extremely low rate for their citizens. So for us to promote domestic tourism and to achieve that aim, then it's high time our hotel facilities have a look at restructuring their pricing system in order to attract Ghanaians.
There's a lot of work to do, Radia. Thanks very much for speaking to us on Business Live. We really appreciate it. And for all those of us looking to travel outside the country, try our local tourist sites. You will amaze you what you find. Grateful for your time. While watching Business Live, it's not just the tourism sector that is heading to losses. We are seeing that also happening on the job market. So many people losing their jobs, companies not employing, and it's really a terrible time. So how about a solution? Well, earlier I spoke with the lead developer of iSolve Africa about an initiative that is going to help bridge the unemployment gap. Basically what they're doing is linking professionals with job opportunities. Listen to my conversation with Henry COBBLAH.
It was an idea leaked from December last year, and it's really proven itself to be, because I'm just launching it as close to like 6,000 people freelancers registering to be on the platform. Just last week we had someone just crack like 12,000, so they're just doing brand work for a company, which is impressive because relatively this guy is just out of school from TTU, and he's only just, just sitting in the house waiting to graduate and then get on. And this person relatively now gets to have a job, sit in the house, do the job, and then earns at least 12,000, which is very okay for people. So I think that it's been more relevant during this time, and it should be. In actual sense, it's actually the global trend, and so it doesn't really take a lot away from it, but it's a new way where people are sort of working to make sure that they have enough money. The interesting part of it is that it's not just about people who are not working, but people who are even working. There are people who are just doing some jobs in the bank and all, but still would be able to earn some level of salary away from their 9-to-5 jobs. There have been accountants where who just reach out to companies and just do their accounts within a day or two, and they should be good enough to move on to the next client. And so the idea relatively is not for people who don't have work to do because there's a pandemic in place, but sort of the new trends which helps people to raise extra funding for themselves without having to move and leave from their house. It's been awesome. I think that the reception has been awesome, especially from the tech community. Quite a lot of people, over 6,000 people have registered to be on the platform. Quite a lot of ideas also flow in to make sure that it's getting to be better. But I think that the most interesting part of it is that it's a lot of ideas coming in. The mobile applications are going to be launched just very soon, and so that makes it very easy. The idea is that I want to get people to work without having to think of data, without having to think of where they are. It's just supposed to be that easy. And so even the mobile applications are going to be very robust in such a way that you don't need to have data to be able to be on. And so anywhere, anytime, any day, we should be in communication with clients.
Great stuff. And that is Business Live tonight. My name is Darryl Powell. Enjoy your weekend.
On Africa.